what comes to mind when I say veganuary?
Not to offend anyone, but for me it's a bit...
It's fine. No, just say it.
Just say,
honestly, you're entitled to your opinion, man.
Unnecessary.
Yeah.
Kinda, well, in my opinion anyway, like...
Cool.
My opinion on veganuary.
So basically I just wanted to know, have you heard of veganuary and what your opinion is on it?
I've never heard of it.
So yeah, man, basically I'm just out here asking, have people heard of veganuary and their thoughts on that and what that means to them?
Okay. Well, I've been a vegetarian for 10 years now.
I respect people who would stick to it, but for me personally, I wouldn't be.
Yeah, I get it. Like, the reason I'm out here is to get, like, I don't want people just saying the same thing, so it's good to have a difference of opinion. Do you mind, like just helping me understand more, like, your perspective on that, like why or where, you know what I mean? Just like your take on it, or...
I understand people's reasons for wanting to participate in it, like eat less meat, but I think recently it's become more of like a bragging right as opposed to people doing it for the actual right reasons.
Yeah.
So I think the vegan products are actually more expensive as well. So as a student anyway, for me, I don't think it's very sustainable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be doing it because, well, like, I have a nut allergy and I feel like nuts and seeds and all that is a big part of being a vegan for like dietary purposes.
Okay.
So I avoided for that, but I was tempted to go vegetarian, or at least cut back on meat, like maybe do like, what is it when you eat fish, a pescatarian?
Pescatarian.
Yeah, I was thinking of maybe doing that, but I just never really didn't have the budget for it, to be honest, more than anything else. But I'm not against it. Like, why would I be against somebody eating what they want? Like, but it's just never been. It's never something that I sought to do, ever thought would interest me, to be honest.
I didn't know it existed, but it's not a bad thing. I kind of did. Well, like, I didn't know it was called that, but like I've seen it. Like, I work in a shop and it's all vegan stuff is like the main thing there.
What shop?
M&S.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they have like the plant kitchen and everything. Awesome.
They were doing quite a bit for it, but I didn't know it was called that. But
maybe. So veganuary is just basically trying veganism for the month of January. And yeah, I know like veganism is a polarizing subject. Some people feel strongly one way or the other, so I'm just trying to see what people think, and like the whole New Year resolution, people making changes. Yeah, what do you think then? What do you think about veganism, or what is that? What do you think of what comes to mind when you hear that, or?
Well, I mean, I'm not a vegan myself, but I can't tell other people what to eat.
Yeah,
it's absolutely people's own choice what they put in their own bodies, and as long as they're able to sustain themselves, it's not really a problem.
Really respect that, yeah. Yourself?
No, I think it's good. Like, there's a big variety of like chicken and cheeses you can get, and they all look really good. Like,
you're talking about vegan versions?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So if something is vegan, basically it's a plant-based product. It doesn't originate from animal products. So.
No, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah. Cool. Me too. Completely agree. Let me give you a scenario.
Okay.
You said about the bragging rights and the right reasons. You feel like the right reasons are getting obscured. What do you think the right reasons are?
I know the benefits of like how much cattle we go through and things, and how that contributes to global warming and things like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy.
I know there is benefits in that term, but if you look into it a little bit, it's kind of like, I watched an interview a few days ago and they were saying the vegan products actually do contribute to it in equal ways. Like, the example I watched was to do with almonds. They're harvested from like millions of bees, and the bees have to be flown to a certain country, and then they get harvested like that and then flown back. So if you look at it like that, instead of having your local meat, all the airplanes are contributing just as equally to...
Okay. So I'll get to this in a minute, but I just want to say that I think Sean got a bit confused here. The whole bees as pollinators and being exploited by being flown about the place to pollinate crops for almonds. Let's be honest, that isn't because of vegans. The majority of the population aren't vegan. I would even go as far as to say the majority of products containing almonds probably aren't vegan, and the majority of people who consume those products therefore aren't vegan either. So it's really not because of vegans, the exploitation and environmental impact of bees being flown around the place to grow almonds. If everyone was vegan, there would be a lot less land needing to be farmed, and therefore there would be a lot less of an environmental impact due to human activity, and therefore there would be a lot less, practically zero need to exploit and use animals for any form of agriculture because we'd all be plant-based. I just don't think his comment here holds up as a credible argument. And so I also did some research into crops that are pollinated by bees. And you can see here, although 70 out of the top 100 food crops that supply 90% of the world's nutrition pollinated by bees, such as all these. Let me see, one sec, just bear with me. We can see that the research seems to show that wild bees and other insects are twice as effective as honeybees. And so, therefore, it logically follows, as we can see, this article, where are we? This article is based on a piece of research done in the journal Science. Regardless of honeybee abundance, overall, wild insects pollinated crops more effectively, and we can see from this here, important source, that the vast majority of pollinators are wild, including over 20,000 species of bees. So yeah, just some background information. I thought I would just bring this up because it was something I didn't know a whole lot about, so I wanted to dig deeper into it and share that with you. So let's get back to the interviews. Okay, so really quickly, just before I get back to the interviews, I want to say, because I don't think I got into it during this interview, on the topic of locally sourced meat, let's be honest, this guy is a student. Locally sourced meat is expensive. It's more expensive than cheap meat, which if you're a student, that's going to be what you're buying. But also, regardless, animal agriculture is the third leading cause of climate change, so you massively lower your carbon footprint by being vegan, even more than you would do by avoiding driving and flying. So I think the World Watch Institute has it at 51% of annual worldwide greenhouse gas emissions can be attributed to animal products. And also, it's simply just not practical to advocate for locally sourced meat for everybody, because if we all did that to feed an increase in population, we simply just don't have enough earth to do this. It is well established now that there's enough science to show you can yield more plant protein with less land and less water, so eating vegan is a lot more of an intelligent choice in regards to the environment. Even if some produce is flown in, it's still better for the environment than animal agriculture. Plus, there's the ethics of slaughtering animals when you don't have to and you have an abundance of choice now. I just wanted to clear this up because it's a great point he raised, and I didn't want to let it slip by without giving it the explanation it deserves. For real, let's get back to the interviews. I realised I could reduce the suffering of a lot of animals because they were being bred for our consumption. So if I started consuming other products, there wasn't animals being bred into existence for me, because it's supply and demand, it goes up and everything. And then, like you say, there's the environmental and there's the health benefits as well. I came across something like that as well recently about the almonds, and I think I seen someone had a good point, and basically they said there's no form of agriculture that doesn't involve, it's basically pollination that doesn't involve, that's a natural occurrence. I know that almonds in general are a bit more resource intensive than say soy or oat or whatever, but from what I've seen, even with the almonds, it's still nowhere near comparable to the amount of land and water that you need to grow say crops, and then the amount of land for say cattle and animal agriculture. And when I first became vegan, I thought that okay, so I'm not harming these animals that are going into slaughterhouses. They're no longer going into slaughterhouses for me, and I'm not responsible for not only the slaughter process, but the animals being bred into existence, the babies being separated from the mothers, the chicks going into the grinder when they're day old because they're not going to lay eggs because they're male. So it's the treatment throughout their whole life cycle, which 90% of all the animal products in supermarkets, it's that scenario, because people will bring up high welfare farms and all this, but that's the absolute minority. So all that being aside, I learned then that just existing on this planet negatively impacts others. No one is perfect. No one is without causing harm, say, to the environment, having an environmental impact. And even okay, say like vegans, and not just vegans, obviously, because people who aren't vegan still eat vegetables and legumes and everything. Crop deaths, that's another one. Animals die in crop harvesting. So that like humbled me, and I was like, right, okay. And I actually thought that meant that I could communicate better with people who weren't vegan, because we're responsible for the damage that we incur on the planet and everything. But what I liked about the vegan philosophy, like the sort of the vegan, what vegans would say to that in response to that critique, which is a fair and valid one, is that veganism isn't about like moral perfection. It's just impossible to achieve. It's about reducing your harm as much as like practicably possible. So I learned that, and basically whether it's animals not being like artificially inseminated and bred into existence for me and for vegans because we're reducing our demand, or whether it's being better for the environment, whether it's not contributing to carrying on like in our own personal health, like diseases, increasing our chances for disease. I basically learned that like veganism in general is like the better option in terms of environment, health, but really morality, because I think intention is I love that you touched on this as well, because it's something that doesn't always come up, but I think the intention is important. When we're buying animal products, we may not be conscious that our intention is actually to have animals slaughtered on our behalf, but when we're vegan, our intention is a conscious one, and it's to consciously avoid as much as possible reducing suffering to like non-human animals. So like, have you any thoughts on that? Or because I'm just trying to progress the narrative in general, and like plant seeds, and people teach me things and help me, that way. So
I do respect people who have the guts to do it. Like, I know if you grew up your whole life eating meat, it's obviously a big step to
like that was me
out.
24 odd years of my life eating animal products every single day. The nut allergy one's interesting actually, because it's not something obviously that comes up a lot. I don't know, generally speaking, the percentage of the population that have that issue, but it's probably higher than I would assume.
I think
though
it's the most common allergy.
So you said about the nut allergy, you said at one point you considered the pescatarian thing, and then lastly you were saying the expenses. Yeah, so do you mind if I sort of like just talk about those things a little bit more?
Yeah, go for it.
Actually, before that, I'll just explain. So I'm a vegan. I'm an advocate of veganism, and I wasn't born vegan, and I used to eat animal products just like everybody else, and never really thought twice about it. Never really thought about the animals. People go vegan for a number of reasons. Really, I feel like you can only really, because people conflate veganism with like a diet, but it's more like a moral philosophy. So you can hear people say things like, I'm vegan for environmental reasons, or I'm vegan for my health. And while it is better, the research shows it's better for the environment generally, and if you do your diet right, you can thrive on a plant-based diet. It can reverse heart disease, type 2 diabetes. It can give you all these nice healthy kickbacks. But really, the moral aspect is the animals, and so I feel like it's quite a dichotomy in society, where typically society has these values of being animal lovers, but also animal eaters, and also being against cruelty to animals. So it's this kind of tornado effect of like moral, I don't know, it's just a mess. So because I'm like, how can you love animals if you put them in a slaughterhouse and eat their dead bodies, but I'm so in tune with like there's a huge disconnect in food and slaughterhouses and what happens to animals, like, because I feel like I'm a good representation of the general public in that, like, before I was vegan, like, I would have called myself, I would have said I'm an animal lover, but I was sitting down and having their dead bodies on my plates. And like now when I think about that, I'm like, I don't really know if I could really own that label now when I like think about it the way I do now. So So I just wanted to establish that with you because I think like my other points kind of spring from that perspective.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe, and you can research this for yourself, but I do believe there are vegans with nut allergies who can make that work. So I just want to quickly say that, and we can check that out later or whatever. That's maybe something I can learn about for future.
I haven't especially looked it up, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
I can understand why.
Every video I've always looked on like a vegan recipe. It's always been like I had X, Y, Z of seeds and nuts.
Is it nuts and seeds for you? Is it?
No, it's every nut I got tested for came back positive, but seeds are generally okay. But
yeah.
It's always on the packaging. It's just like made in a factory that handles.
And I know nut allergies can be really sensitive. Like you can just be in a room with them and you flare up and everything.
Thankfully, I'm not that.
Unless
you force them down my throat, I'll live. I'll be very uncomfortable, but I'll live.
Yeah. So just really on the nut thing, I suppose nuts are healthy sources of plant fats and protein and probably calcium and iron too, and you can get all those nutrients in other plant sources. So that's where my thinking comes from in terms of I'm pretty sure it can be done on a vegan diet. Now I know you're probably thinking, right, okay, but I'm not interested, and that's completely fine. I don't expect you to really be at this point, or maybe not at all. Just want to touch on the other two things you said, if you don't mind. The fish thing. So I always find it interesting because I did the vegan thing for ethical reasons. So now when I hear people say, I'm vegetarian or I'm pescatarian, to me what that sounds like in my vegan brain is like I only choose to harm a certain species of animal. Like it's like arbitrarily discriminating based on species, or maybe it's based on taste or cuisine or whatever, but to me it's like arbitrary at best, because I feel like vegetarians, while that is a diet, there's definitely vegetarians that do it for ethical reasons. They say, I love animals, I just don't want to eat them. But the information is quite easily accessible now for vegetarians to see that milk, eggs, like I'm not sure if vegetarians eat fish. Because I know fish technically isn't classed as meat because it's not a land animal, which makes no sense to me, but I googled it one time and that's the reason why it's not classed as meat, because they're not on land. Meat somehow specifically to do with land animals, but anyway. So I'm not too sure about vegetarians and fish, but like vegetarians are becoming increasingly more aware that the animal products that they do still consume, like those animals end up in slaughterhouses. Like, did you know that, just real quick?
Well, I'm from like a farm family, so
Northern Ireland's huge from it. Like half the people I talk to have some sort of connection.
So I think that's maybe part of the problem, that I grew up with it, so I'm like emotionally detached from it.
Like, Thank you for being so honest.
I will say I don't eat like cow anything because the animal, or any like rabbit, any lamb, because they were the animals that were around
when you were so young.
When I was young and like in the field, so like every time I seen it or smelled like the meat, I couldn't do it. But I think I just like, I work in a McDonald's now and like I'm handling meat all the time, and I just like you don't perceive it the way like say I would. No.
To you it's like, and it's true for most people, they look at it as food. They literally look at it as an inanimate object. It's food. It's not
from the shop.
And that's really what I'm trying to break down. Is that when you see like the slaughterhouse footage and everything, you don't see the flesh of animals as food. You see it as injustice. You see it as like abuse and violence. And I know they're inflammatory words, but all we have to do is see what happens to animals, and I think they're like really appropriate words to describe what's happening. They're getting like hung upside down, they're getting knives in their throats, they're getting all sorts of crazy stuff, shot in the head, electrocuted, all these unreal things that we do to animals in the name of eating them, which like in 2020 is just like unnecessary. But anyway, and the other thing you made a point, which is a common perception, and I find to be not as concrete as it appears when I say this to people. So you were saying like maybe you couldn't do the pescatarian thing, I'm guessing because you learned that maybe fish was quite expensive, or what?
It was quite expensive, and then it was kind of like part of the decision was, like as you were saying, it's just like it is still an animal. It's just like,
Yeah.
why would you give up one?
Yeah.
Or sorry, leave one and not
the
others kind
yeah,
of thing.
Cool.
So
that's interesting.
But,
you had the compassion sort of there in that way, anyway.
well, it's like
Well, you thought about
you
the
can call it
animal
compassion,
morally.
but then I just decided to eat them all.
How would you feel if someone forced you through a world of suffering and then killed you at the end of it for their beliefs?
I mean, no comments.
I mean,
I can totally see. I can see the perspective there as
Yeah.
well. You know.
and I know that's not an easy question to
Yeah.
consider and think about.
Yeah.
For me, the crux of it is like, so I'm vegan. I wasn't born vegan. I've been vegan nearly 4 years.
Yeah.
And when I thought about it in terms of we should respect others and others' personal choices and others' way of life, I thought about it and I thought, well, what about when our way of life like negatively impacts others in a seriously harmful way and ultimately ends in them being chopped into pieces? I thought, like, is that something that I respect in myself? And I was like, I like animals. I love animals actually, and I really don't like to see animal cruelty. Would you say that you like/love animals and you don't like animal cruelty?
I mean, of course, but it is a massive life change to make. Like,
Yeah.
it's something we would consider, but it's just not something we're doing at the minute. You know, like, I would maybe avoid animal cruelty in like smaller parts of my life. Like, I won't buy makeup that's been tested on animals and stuff like that. I just don't have a vegan lifestyle at the minute.
Yeah. That's commendable. Like, why would you say you would buy the like products not tested on animals? Why would you feel that that's like more accessible than say like the food or whatever? Because I'm guessing the reason that you would not buy the products tested on animals is because of the animal cruelty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I won't buy anything that has animal products in it as well,
Yeah.
like makeup wise.
Cosmetics.
Cosmetics wise. Like, food is something I would consider, but it's just such a big lifestyle change
Yeah.
at the minute when
Yeah.
you know, like, we've got so much other
Yeah.
stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know?
Completely agree.
Expensive too.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
be
To be
honest
expensive.
with you.
You know what's cool? Those two things you just said, one of the other people I interviewed said, because there is like common things that people think of. So consider there are students that are vegan, so they still have the busy life, all that, and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Just something to acknowledge, because I never thought about that when people said that. Like, I was like, yeah, I get that actually being a student's really busy way of life, and maybe you don't have time for it. But then I was like, well, there's students who are vegan. So the other thing as well, it is actually somewhat of a myth that as a blanket idea that veganism is more expensive in general, because if you think about the cheapest foods in the world that probably populate like half your plate already, like potatoes or rice or beans or peas, broccoli, carrots, onions, whatever, mushrooms, even if you're not like a huge vegetable person, you will have some sort of like vegetable derived or plant-based item, and yeah, you can go, this is what I love about Veganuary this year. Like you were saying, you work on Marks and Spencer's and they have an increasingly big range of like vegan options. Like basically every chain and supermarket you can think of has rolled out so many more options that are affordable, that are just as accessible if you're in the supermarket and you're shopping already, therefore just as convenient and pretty tasty as well. So I'm feeling like as time goes on, it's like actually harder to defend the position of unnecessarily harming animals. And a consistent pattern that I hear when I interview people, and I completely understand it, because if it was the other way around and you were interviewing me and I really hadn't looked into it very deeply, I would probably say with 100% certainty that I would think, yes, it is, it's a big lifestyle change, and I would think that it was maybe one that I just couldn't ever see myself doing. And that's a really common feeling that people have, like, oh, so I'd have to change what I eat, what I wear, what products I buy, the type of, like, yeah, I don't wear leather, I don't wear the skin of animals, all these different things, and that seems like a huge thing. It's something I'm hearing myself repeat, but that's our perspective, and that's incredibly important because it's primary. It starts with us and what we think. But we have to consider as well the perspective of others, and yes, like, it would be difficult. Maybe not like for the rest of our lives. Maybe after 2 weeks we'd actually get the hang of it and be like, actually, it's not that bad. But think about how incredibly difficult, and not only difficult, but like heartbreakingly cruel and unimaginable the suffering is for animals. Like when we're not choosing the vegan option, we're literally condemning them to a slaughterhouse where they'll be hung upside down and someone will stick a knife in their throat and cut them into pieces. And would you say, just like that alone, would you say that that is something that you are okay with, even though you have acknowledged like you're not vegan and everything? And I get that, like,
yeah, well, it's obviously not something that I'm happy about, you know.
Yeah.
I can acknowledge it's not a great practice, you know.
Yeah.
And like it is maybe a lifestyle choice that most people will consider, you know, in their life, you know, changing to veganism. But
do you think, I love the word happy, and you used it, and I think that's great. It's a great word. I'm a wordy person, sorry. I'm going off on a tangent. But anyway, happy. Do you think it would be, say, like, if you could conceive of yourself actually like taking on the vegan lifestyle and being a vegan, do you think that you would be happy about that? Because I'm guessing that's like, regardless of your anticipation of difficulty and challenge and everything, say like you mastered it, you'd be, because you're not happy with the slaughterhouse practice and everything, you'd obviously be happy if you realised that you were suddenly living this lifestyle where you weren't putting like defenceless creatures in a house of slaughter. That would be more in alignment with like what you would like to see in the world.
I mean, like, I'm not going to stick my heels in the ground and say I'm never going to consider it, you know. It's probably something I would consider. Like, I
really respect that, honestly.
Thank you so much. I was vegetarian for a wee while, so like it's something I've like already considered, you know. It's just,
was that for ethical reasons?
Yeah, it was.
Like animal cruelty? Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
Veganery is pretty good. Like businesses have took the chance on it. Like McDonald's last year, they had the veggie burger,
and the vegan wrap.
I've been like going to there and getting that, because previously when my friends went to McDonald's, there's like nothing there for a vegetarian.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, you could just get like chips, maybe a salad or something, but you don't get veg at a fast food restaurant. So
it sucks.
But
but not anymore.
Yeah, although it's like veganery, I'm noticing it's very towards flexitarians, like the KFC Spring Night New Burger, it isn't actually vegetarian. So it's like, because it's on the same grill, so it's not actually technically vegetarian that way. Same for Burger King.
I know that's true of Burger King. I heard though with KFC that they were legit with it.
Was it?
Yeah, I definitely heard with Burger King, but I heard KFC and like Greg's and everything, they were trained to like have it separate.
Is vegetarian.
I got the KFC burger, mine was legit. The whole say so the burger's vegan, and say even if it is grilled on the same grill as like chicken flesh or whatever, that's more of a personal thing in terms of level of comfortability, if the person is comfortable with that, because I don't really think I'd be comfortable with it, and I'm not sure. I think KFC might be alright, maybe not. I suppose it's branch by branch. Yeah. I could have sworn in the one in the city centre they had a sign saying it was legit the way it was prepared and everything. But what I was going to say was, if it's cooked on the same grill, like that doesn't cause suffering to any animals. But it just might not be something that we're comfortable with, and so I completely agree with you there. I personally probably wouldn't be comfortable with it.
I think it's good. Like, I read like another article that people are becoming, like accidentally becoming more vegetarian because it's like more on choice, because like there's people they eat meat but do feel bad about it, that kind of idea. So having all these like options,
just makes it easier.
Idea, yeah. So that you won't feel bad.
Yeah, I mean 2020 Veganuary, so many just choices now to eat without murdering animals. It's beautiful. What made you go vegetarian then, just out of curiosity? That's a long time you've been veggie.
Oh, I think I forget the initial reason, but I think there's a couple. So I remember just before one Christmas, my uncle, who works on a farm, and he like grew turkeys, and fed them.
Yeah.
He like took me to this like back room, and there was all these turkeys like hanging, row by row, and then
when you were really young,
I was like 8. And there's like,
I suppose that's normal to him though. That's probably what happened to him.
Yeah, and there was like this bin with the turkey guts and everything. I was like, oh. Although the movie Babe, the farmer, he went vegan.
Yeah, that's
I was
right.
like,
I want to remember that guy's name. It's James something, I think.
I can't remember
James
his name.
I heard that story. That was awesome.
Just about animals speaking. You really
being
like
their own individuals.
Yeah.
I like to think of them as non-human persons. because they are individuals.
Yeah.
And I just think the term non-human person ascribes them more respect. So I think typically people think that animals are so beneath us and they're not worthy of life as much as us, and I just think when you say non-human person, I know it's maybe like strange to hear the first time, but I think it's closer to what animals really should be perceived as, you know. So I seen like a lot of slaughterhouse footage. I researched just in general what happens to animals, how they're like mutilated, how their tails are cut off, their teeth are clipped out, no anesthetic a lot of the time. Chickens, like beaks are cut off, all these crazy things that are just a byproduct of, you know, breeding billions of animals. You can't look after the welfare of every single one of them, and anyway, you know when you were saying there, you just don't think you could do it, like the will and everything. The thing that completely just made me transfer to I can completely do this was watching like slaughterhouse footage, watching animals suffering. When you also acknowledge the perspective of the fate of like innocent, defenseless creatures who really don't get a say in the matter, then it's not just about us and like our personal grasp on our sense of willpower. For me, like, going vegan wasn't about willpower. It was an absolute jump from I'm a meat eater who wears the skin of dead animals, who like goes to the zoo, all these things, pay for animal exploitation, maybe buys products tested on animals. But when I learned, like really learned how much they suffer and ultimately like lose their lives, then it wasn't anything to do with willpower. It was just like a moral thing. It was like I think deep down we all want to live like a righteous life and try not to harm others as much as possible. And so when I understood that veganism was a real practical way that I could do that, like just go into the shop, instead of buying dairy milk, buy soy milk, buy the plant-based chicken, you know. And just want to cash in on something you said earlier as well. There is certain products that, like vegan products, that are more expensive, say like the KFC burger maybe, but see, like if you think about like the base of your plate, the cheapest foods are actually vegan, like potatoes, lentils, beans, chickpeas, rice, all these different things. And I know like just listing food items doesn't sound that appetizing, but when you say look at a vegan cookbook or check out recipes and stuff, like you can get pretty creative with flavors and tastes and spices and herbs, and you can also buy like mock meats. That's what I love about these new options. You go to Greg's, get a vegan steak bake. You can go to Subway, get a meatless marinara with vegan cheese. All these things that are still you know, they still taste and look like the products that we love, but like an animal isn't getting a knife in their throat. And do you think in principle like that is a better thing?
Yeah, well, I can't dispute that. I know the things that do go on, but for me personally anyway, I'm not much of a cook.
Yeah, me either. Yeah.
So mostly I'll go home at the weekend and just bring up whatever my parents have cooked during the week. And I don't think I'm going to change their minds in anything like that. So
like I'm the only vegan in my family, and like it did kind of force me to consider cooking for myself, and now I do. And the way I see it, like cooking for yourself is like a good life skill, and it's something that we should probably learn at some point. But like I get it, for most of my life my mom like cooked my food and everything, but I guess on that what I could say is like we're creatures of habit, and we continue to do what those around us have done because we learn from observation, and we kind of like to do things that keep us close to our family, at least in mind. You know, I cook this really nice meal the way my mum taught me and everything. But ultimately I feel like when it comes down to like say convenience or affordability or taste, or even like the whole culture being on the side of, you know, the way I see it now with like eyes really wide open is like condemning animals to slaughter. I can't morally justify it because there's alternatives now, and because like say it is the cooking for yourself, while that may be tricky and everything, would you say that maybe learning how to cook for yourself would be, I want to get it right, would you say that it would be it's worth like saving the lives of animals, or would you say the convenience of having someone else cook for you is worth more to you than the life of an animal? And I appreciate that I'm asking like tough questions, but I'm just really trying to my hat's gonna blow off. I'm just trying to probe, because I think when we really get into it, these ideas of animals and culture, it's largely unconscious and inherited, and it's not really thought about. So I'm just trying to probe and get people to think about it, and really I think when they do, like, they might be surprised what conclusions they come to themselves. So I'm terrible for rambling, and like, I see when I watch back my videos, I'm always the one doing the most talking, so I'm really, really sorry. But to come round to that question, it was basically, do you think that like the convenience of having someone else cook for you, or say the difficulty of you learning to cook for yourself, like the life of an animal, what's more important?
I think the incentive's definitely there, like, to know that you're doing better, but I think as a student anyway, like, obviously I do intend to learn how to cook eventually,
of course,
but right now I kind of have my priorities in other places, and I'd have to source all the ingredients myself if I was here, and I'd have to learn how to do it, and I just don't think I'd have enough time as is.
What do you say to vegan students who are like you but they're doing the vegan thing?
Where are they getting all this money from?